Thank you. Hello. Welcome to Edinburgh. As you can probably tell, I'm not from Edinburgh myself. Could we have a show of hands, please? Who, like me, lives outside the Edinburgh city boundary? Great. Great. Well, had you been in Edinburgh 177 years ago, on a cold December day, you would have heard a very compelling speech. Just 3 miles from here, in a room on Princes Street, the speaker was a professor. His name, Thomas Chalmers. His burden was for the children of Edinburgh and their parents. Chalmers saw children scantily dressed, in spite of the cold, forced into lives of crime to feed the addictions of their parents. From what Chalmers could see, they had no notion of how to conduct themselves. Their language was foul, and their faces haggard from lack of food. Chalmers' message on the 29th of December 1845 was simple. Don't be paralyzed by the enormity of the task. Think small, think local. And don't expect the children to come to you. Go to where they are. That really is what Christian Values in Education Scotland does. We resource adults to go to where the children of 21st century Scotland are. And many of them are in school, state schools and independent schools. We resource teachers, chaplains, schools workers to go to the confused, troubled, lost children and young people of our land. Today, most of Edinburgh's children have shoes. Most have food in their tummies. But they have no more awareness of the claims of the Maker on their lives than the children Chalmers saw on Edinburgh's streets. Our curriculum in Scotland says that children and young people should have the possibility of making informed choices about beliefs and values. In order for them to be able to do that, schools need to provide an objective exposure to a multiplicity of views and training in how to critique them. At CVE Scotland, we work to help teachers have the resources they need to present the Christian viewpoint and the confidence to do so. And also, we train and resource schools workers and chaplains and parents to serve Scotland's schools. Not long after he had made that speech on Princess Street, Chalmers died. But he'd left an impression on young Thomas Guthrie. Leaving an impression on younger practitioners is important to us in CVE too. Thomas Guthrie, could we have the slide, please? His statue stands in Princess Street Gardens. He took up the baton from from Chalmers. If you've long enough to stay in Edinburgh, if you're up on the mound and you head towards the castle, up Ramsey Lane, when you get to the top, where Camera Obscura is now, pause and look up. Engraved in the stonework, we'll see the next slide, please. You can read in the doorway, search the scriptures, John 5:39. This is the premises of the original Ragged School in Edinburgh, started in 1847. I love to stand there and imagine the children filing in to Guthrie's school. They learnt to mend shoes, read, count, cook nourishing food, do laundry, and they learnt of the claims of God, their creator, on their lives. 175 years later, Christian Values in Education Scotland exists for Scotland's children. We yearn for them. Education Scotland says that children should flourish, I quote, as part of their learner journey. All children and young people in Scotland are entitled to experience a coherent curriculum from 3 to 18 in order that they have opportunities to develop the knowledge, skills, and attributes they need to adapt, think critically, and flourish in today's world. We want children to think critically and flourish too. We don't flourish by starting with ourselves. God has shown us how he wants us to understand what it is to be human, knowing his amazing love and following his creational design. We flourish as men and children, men and women, children and young people. Today, when flourishing is so much talked about, we have a wonderful opportunity to share the biblical story, the story that we live in as Christians. And at CVE, we help adults to be confident about what they believe so that they can tell this biblical story in our state schools with enthusiasm, contagious enthusiasm. You don't need me to tell you how much in need of a message of hope and purpose Scotland's children are. In the National Portrait Gallery, there's a beautiful painting of Thomas Guthrie by James Edgar. Could we have the next slide, please? I have a print of this hanging above my desk to inspire me. It does. As do Guthrie's words. Call them, if you choose, the rubbish of society. Only let us say that there are jewels among the rubbish which would richly repay the expense of searching, and that bedded in their dark and dismal abodes, precious stones lie there, which only wait to be dug out and polished to shine first on earth and then forever in the Redeemer's crown. A year before Guthrie died, the Scottish government took the responsibility for education out of the hands of the church. But today, it's still possible for us to do as Chalmers said, and go where they are. I have two colleagues with me today, and I'm going to ask them, Steve, would you come first, please? Steve is a colleague in Christian Values in Education Scotland, and I'm going to ask Steve one question. I'm going to ask him, Steve, how do you help Scotland's children? He's coming. Steve. Hello.
Hello.
How do you help Scotland's children?
Hi, I'm Steve Younger. I'm the pastor of a Baptist church across in Blantyre. I've been there 36 years. But for longer than that, I've been involved in schools as a schools chaplain, 40 years. And I suppose my vision is to give the children of Scotland that opportunity to have an informed choice about matters of faith. Going back to that curriculum for excellence and the church handing over control of its schools in 1872 to the Scottish government. Written in then was the idea of religious observance, time for reflection as it's called now. It's the one part of the curriculum that is still mandated. It's legal. It has to be done for all pupils through 3 to 18. Details of curriculum are not written into law. They can be changed. And actually that's what's brought us here, seeing some of the changes in the curriculum. But that opportunity, that open door to explore faith is still there. So I think my task for the children is to ensure that door stays open, and that those who have the privilege and the opportunity to share their faith can do that effectively with an understanding of where they fit in the curriculum. Curriculum for excellence places a responsibility on everybody in a school to see to the well-being of every pupil, getting it right for every child. And that well-being is defined physically, emotionally, and spiritually. It's still written into all the policy documents. So I think that's my task, is to make sure that the open door that's there is kept open, and that Christian teachers and chaplains are thoroughly equipped and properly equipped.
Don't go just yet, Steve. Could you just enlarge a bit on exactly how you're helping chaplains and schools workers to fulfill their role as they should?
There's two main strands to that. One is I'm a lecturer at the Baptist College, and I teach a module, 12-week module, level 7 module on schools chaplaincy. I'll also be teaching one next term on general chaplaincy, covering all areas of chaplaincy, prison ministry, healthcare chaplaincy, and so on. But my main focus is that course, training school chaplains to work within schools and to partner with schools. The other thing I do is I work on the other side of the fence, as it were. I train the education authorities. So I work with each of the Scottish education authorities to train staff in how they do time for reflection. Schools have this responsibility for spiritual well-being, for the values acquisition, morals and ethics and so on. And a lot of schools don't know how to do that, particularly the spiritual aspect. So I work with the education authorities and I train school staff in how they can do time for reflection.
Could you maybe say a little bit as well, Steve, about helping chaplains and school workers to understand the workings of the school? For example, I know that schools have to fill out forms on how good is their school and how partnering with the community is important. So you could maybe explain how you help people to understand how to go into schools.
I very much like to seize that open door that is still there. And one of the open doors for us is the school's own self-assessment framework. Anybody who works in a school will know this already. It gets called Higios for short, which is a rather bizarre acronym. But Higios means, how good is our school? It's the self-assessment framework for schools on all aspects of curriculum and education. Higios 4 because it's in its fourth incarnation. What makes Higios 4 so important for me and an opportunity for us as people of faith is section 2.7, partnership with the community. So schools are now obliged to look for partners in the community who can help them develop the whole curriculum, who can help them develop experiences, growth, values, all this kind of area. And that chapter, that section, is a place where communities of faith, local churches, can partner with their local schools. So that's the key bit for me. You've got to remember that. Paragraph 2.7 in Higios 4. I think that's part of what I do, is I help chaplains to understand this open door and understand the language. If you as a chaplain, if you as a local minister or representative of a faith congregation go along to your local school and say, here we are, can we come in and help? They'll probably go no, because they'll be suspicious of what your motive might be. They'll assume you're coming to indoctrinate, to evangelize, and so on. But if you can come along and say, I understand the curriculum, the aspect of spiritual well-being and development, I understand Higios 4, I'd like to help you with that partnership in the community. You've got the advantage, usually your children's workers in your churches and faith congregations are already PVG checked. So you're able to say, we've got people of experience, of skill, yes, of faith, but they're PVG checked, they're safe, and they fulfill your own curriculum requirement to find community partners. It's all to the benefit of the pupils.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Helping Scotland's children. Thank you, Steve. Great. I have another colleague, Kate. In Christian Values in Education, we like to, as we're doing here today, network with different organizations. And Kate actually works with the Message Trust. But I'm going to ask her the same question that I asked Steve. Kate, what are you doing to help Scotland's children? So I'll let Kate speak for herself. Kate, what are you doing to help Scotland's children?
I couldn't get through the curtain there. I was like, I can't get in. So I work for the Message. Now, you will recognise I'm not from these parts. I'm from Manchester originally, but I have been here for 20 years, okay? I haven't just arrived from Manchester. I think it's really important, just to let you guys know that I recognise Scotland is different and the ground here is hard, and we have to be, really wise and in tune with His Spirit, and we've got to know the environment that we're going into. So I go in schools and talk to young people about things like porn and sharing images and all that sort of stuff. And I joined the Message about a year ago. And prior to that, I'd run my own charity doing that for a few years. And so when I got involved with the Message, I love what the Message is about. The Message have been going into schools for over 25 years, telling people about Jesus. They are evangelists at heart. They love preaching the gospel and letting young people know that they are valued and loved by our beautiful King. So when I came on board with the Message, I was very aware, having lived here for 20 years, that it's a different climate, and so I spent a long time reworking the lessons that they use down in England and Wales to fit our curriculum. So I rewrote with the wonderful help of the guys at CV. These guys, their hearts are so for young people and supporting and equipping and encouraging Christians to be confident going into school. So the guys at CV were wonderful in helping me rewrite all the lessons to fit our curriculum. So I take all your E's and O's and benchmarks and learning intentions and spent loads of time in the curriculum for excellence, which was a joy. So I've rewritten all the lessons, and so I go into schools, and my lessons obviously are meeting health and well-being outcomes. And for me, because the curriculum for excellence is really tight, which is a good thing, I think. But you know, ultimately, if I'm going into a PSE lesson and trying to talk about Jesus, it ain't really going to wash, you know. So in all my lessons, I start off my lessons letting people know, you know, we're a Christian charity, which gets a lot of laughs a lot of the time, actually, when I start off a lesson and I'm like, hi, I'm Kate, I work for the Message and we're a Christian charity, and loads of the kids laugh. You're like, great, this is going well. But in all my lessons, I have a testimony. So somebody talks about how they've been affected by the topic of pornography, or in our self-esteem lesson, somebody shares how they struggle with an eating disorder and how Jesus brought them healing. Okay, and so I'm going into all these mainstream schools, meeting all these things on your curriculum, and I've got somebody talking about that Jesus is the King of Kings in every lesson, honestly, and the teachers love it. Like, it literally, I felt really convicted, actually, when I first started going in, because loads of the teachers were like, oh, I love your lessons. I love that message. I love the story. That bit, that girl, Emma, she can talk anytime. And I felt really convicted because I know we have absolutely overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the power of our testimony. And so I know that when people are watching it, they see His light, don't they? But I was also a bit like, you do realize you just talked about Jesus being the King of Kings. Like, you did see that bit, you know? But actually, people love stories, don't they? And every school I've been into, so I've been in a high school this week, and the police officer, I'd been at a police officer's event, which was almost more intimidating than talking at this. I'm like, get me in a high school with teenagers, that's fine. So it was like a sea of police officers, and I was like, oh my days, what am I doing here? But anyway, this police officer invited me into his school, not a Christian at all, but he was like, you need to come and talk in the school. So I've been delivering lessons all week about living online. What are young people consuming? What are they feeding themselves with? Because they are feeding themselves with is teaching and values. And my heart is to get young people to evaluate what they are putting in, that we need media literate young people. So I've been in this school, and PC, he has been amazing, went out and bought me milk and all sorts. But he's like, I love that testimony bit, that story bit, that's brilliant. And people have just welcomed me in. And I guess the thing is, I do have to be so wise about communicating my faith in those lessons, because if I've got to balance up. If it becomes to a point where it's inaccessible, I ain't going to get into a classroom, do you know? But after my lesson yesterday, one of the RMPS teachers was like, oh, could you come in and do some lessons on Christianity? And I'm like, yeah, man, I love talking about Jesus. That's great. And so I guess for me, it's it's trying to build partnerships as well. I always want to be going into schools where there's already a Christian worker or a local church worker already going in. You know, we have so many amazing people like Steve who have spent years and years going into schools and praying over schools. Like the thing that I want to do to help children is pray and pray in classrooms and pray over young people. But there's so many wonderful people already going in serving schools, and I want to connect with them because they're the ones that are going to continue that journey after I've left that school. Do you know? And I was working in a high school in the south side, and there's a youth worker going in. And it's a really tough school. I found it a really challenging school for various reasons. But he goes in every week, and I got him to come into some of my lessons, and he loved it because, sorry, I'm absolutely rattling on here. I'll shut up in a minute. He loved it because he was like, what's been brilliant is I've been able to talk to the pastoral team in a really different way because I've come in talking about these topics. So they see me in a different light, and they take me seriously on those areas. But I've also met loads of young people in the school that I've not worked with previously. So they now know, actually, maybe I could come and talk to him about this that I've got going on at the moment. And then also the young people that he does know that come along to his Tuesday group, they're seeing him in those lessons as well. And so it's beautiful kingdom work, isn't it? Like we've got to stand together and we've got to be lights together. So, yeah, I guess that's what I'm doing.
Kate, we're really delighted that you're... No apologies at all. We're delighted. Now, Kate, this is tough. I think you'd like all of us to be praying for you when we go from here. So can you tell us in a sentence or two how we could pray for you?
Oh, yes, thank you, yeah. I would love your prayers. It is hard ground. And I think the school that I went into before the summer was the first school where I've had real... I had one teacher speak to me and say, your lessons aren't very inclusive. And I think the key thing for me is prayer about that wisdom of that balance of, I in no way am going to change my values and I'm not going to change what we're about. Do you know, like if I can't tell them I'm a Christian, if I can't show my testimonies, then I don't want to come into your school at the end of the day because that's who we are. But actually, I've also got to make sure that I continue to be accessible because otherwise I can't get into a school. And so how I do that, navigating the culture that we're in, because, I know what it looks like. I was on some training a few weeks ago about harmful sexual behaviour. It is horrific. It's absolutely horrific what is going on in schools and what young people have to walk through. Absolutely. It's just abhorrent, the stuff that young people are sharing and think that it's healthy and think it's okay and that it's normal, and it's not. It's so far from the beauty and life that God has for us. And so my heart is to keep getting into classrooms and keep getting into schools and letting young people know that they are valued and that they can live a different way. And I guess... my heart as well is enabling young people to see that we as Christians can bring a different way, and that we want, the church is a pioneer, and that's how we need to be seen. And so often we're not, the church has a different way of living, and that's where we flourish. But so many young people don't recognize that. And so I like it when I go in and they laugh because I recognize that they don't know what we're about. And actually, I want to help them relearn what the church is about.
Thank you, Kate. I know you'll pray for Kate and for all of us in Christian Values in Education. We're a very small charity. Victoria, our administrator, is paid for 20 hours a week. Steve is paid for 8 hours a week. You notice how I phrase it like that deliberately, because the hours worked do not equal the hours for which one is paid. The rest of us are volunteers. Apart from our new employee, We have just appointed someone to review the current material that is available for teaching relationships, sexual health, and parenting, that strand of the curriculum, and to review and then to reproduce top quality alternative material from a Christian perspective that will be usable by any of Scotland's teachers, whether they're Christian or not. This is a big venture for us. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail anymore about the charity. I hope that some of you will see in the seminar, and I hope that if you don't have time to come today to the seminar, that you will look at our desk and sign up to hear news from us. I know you'll want to have some news about Kate at least, so please do sign up to get some news from us. We won't bombard you with lots of emails, but it would be lovely to be in touch with you. And there are various possibilities, meeting for training events or support and fellowship online or in person. We have monthly prayer meetings nationally on Zoom. I'm going to stop there, but I want to finish with listening to the children of our land in the words of Judy Rogers' song. I'm not going to sing it. The children of Scotland are saying, "Teach me, while my heart is tender. Tell me all that I should know, and through the years I will remember, no matter where I go." Thank you for listening.
Please show your appreciation again for Megan.